Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Crowd Share Podcast. And today is going to be a National League. We went over the American. I just went over the American a minute ago, and so now we'll go to the National League, going over the divisions, all the teams, and just how their season has gone thus far. So let's start with the NL East, which has the Atlanta Braves leading the division at 18-9 with a 500 record at home, but a really impressive 11 and 2 roads with a really impressive 11 and 2 road record. Very shocking. Very you don't really see that very often, but pretty impressive start on the road for the Braves. I'm sure the hometown Atlanta fans would like to see that translate back at home because unless they have a crud ton of money and they just fly wherever they want and watch the Braves wherever they feel like, they really morally just attend at Truist Park. So I think fans would like to see a better home record. But hey, they're 19-9. I don't think they really care because they're winning. They're winning the division. They've been good, and so that's really all fans normally care about. But solid start for Atlanta. 18-9, probably what they would hope for. They'll hope to probably continue that success later into the year. Next, we have the New York Mets at 15-12. This team spends so much money in every single offseason, it seems, as they spent a crud ton of money yet again this year for yet again another old pitcher. As they're trying to pretty much recreate the entire old Tigers pitching staff, as they have now signed both Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. They obviously have Max Scherzer already, but they also signed Justin Verlander just this offseason. But Verlander now on the IL already. I don't even think he got a start in before he hit the IL. So the Mets are already missing one of their starting pitchers, which was kind of the issue last year when they had Scherzer and he went out to the IL like 2 or 3 times. And so they were missing him for half the year. They also had Carrasco on the IL, and they had another guy in the IL. So their pitching staff pretty much disappeared last year, all due to injuries, and it's already started again this year. But 15-12 to start. The Mets will obviously want to be better, as obviously New York people can be very, very tough to please. But the Mets average at best to start this season. They want to win the division, but overall, not a horrid start for New York. Uh, at least they're above 500. They're only 3 games out of first. Decent so far. And then you have the Miami Marlins at 16-13, even though they have a negative 35 run differential, and they haven't even scored 100 runs yet to start the year. So, kind of weird to see that. But the Marlins, this is not a great team. They obviously are. Marlins fans are probably not expecting much out of this team. They do have the reigning Cy Young Award winner for the National League, although he has been terrible to start the season, as he has a 5.14 ERA to start the season. So not what they probably hope for out of him. Not what I hope for out of him either, as that's my number 10 pick. But the Marlins have been honestly weirdly decent, even with that negative 35 run differential. You look at the team on the bottom of this division, they have a larger run differential than them, but they have the better record by 5 games. That just is crazy to me. Anyways, Marlins at 16-13, probably better than what they were thinking they would have at the beginning of the season. But I don't think they really expect to do much this season. But solid start for them. Next, we have the Philadelphia Phillies at 15-14. That's usually a pretty popular record. The Phillies, though, this is a team that really expected to be much better than what they are right now. Now, they actually have been much better recently, as they have finished the month of April 7-3. But they were really awful to start the season, and they were bottom feeders of this division. They've now climbed back above 500. Of course, you see they're 15 and 14. I just said they're 7 and 3 in their last, you know, 10 games, which that meant that they were 8 and 11. So it's been rough to start for the Phillies. Of course, they also spent a crud ton of money on Trey Turner to bring him over to Philadelphia. They also traded for Gregory Soto from the Tigers. So obviously the Phillies are really trying to make a push after winning the National League, after now being defending NL champions and gains the World Series to fall short to Houston. Uh, but the Phillies are looking for obviously something more this season. And then, of course, last is the Washington Nationals. I don't think there's much I have to say about them. They're not good. They're obviously in rebuilding mode. They're not as bad as Oakland, as I talked about in the last video, but they're not good, and it'll be a while until they really see much success again. Then we go to the NL Central, which is a very weird division because it has some very weird teams at the top and at the bottom of it. Uh, as the first team is the probably the. I mean, I talk about the Rays being a big surprise. This is probably the biggest surprise to start the season. The Pittsburgh Pirates at 20-9 to start the season. And I mean, they just lost. They were nine. Uh they're 9-2 in their last 11. Or yeah, they're 9-2. I had to think about that. They're 9-2 in their last 11 games, which is incredible. This is a very impressive start for a Pirate team that was expecting to be last in this division. I mean, they're in the middle of rebuild mode. I mean, they have Brian Reynolds, who is a good outfielder, but I mean, their closer is also solid too, and David Bednar. But really, name somebody else on their team that is great. Obviously, they have O'Neal Cruz, but he's now gone for the season because of a broken leg. But the Pirates, I don't understand how in the world they're 20-9 to start the season. Really impressive for them. Does it continue? I don't think so. But it's nice again to just have a really promising start to the season. Maybe the Pirates continue to be good. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where in the world this is coming from. Now, the NL Central is kind of like the AL Central, that's on a much lesser scale. They're nowhere near as bad as the AL Central, but there's some teams in this division that really just weren't special. Of course, the Pirates were one of them, but really impressive start for Pittsburgh, and we'll see if it continues. Next, we have the Milwaukee Brewers at 18-10. This is kind of what people expected for Milwaukee. This is a team with outstanding pitching and, trying to plug holes on the offensive end. Still got Christian Yelich kind of floundering around. Obviously, a former NL MVP, hasn't really found success after some injuries. Uh, he was a little better last season, and he didn't really hit necessarily for power, but his average was like 250, 260. So I mean that is at least respectable. But the Brewers have had a nice season thus far. They'll obviously hope to have that continue, but so far from Milwaukee, not too bad. The pitching has been solid. Of course, they also have Devin Williams. They also have the big trio of pitching of Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, who is on the IL. I don't remember when he's supposed to come back. And then they also, of course, have Freddie Peralta, who's a big time young guy who has shown promise, but just has gotten a lot of injuries. So we'll see how Milwaukee does. But overall, this is probably the start that most people expected for the Brewers. And then there's the Chicago Cubs at 14-13. Now they were doing really, really good to start the season, but they had a miserable end to the month. As you can see, they're 3-7 in their last 10 games, going from what was 11-6 to now 14-13. But the big thing for the Cubs this season, I mean, if you looked at their team, their entire team is a bunch of rehabilitation projects. They have a lot of has-beens on their team, guys who have had incredible seasons in the past and have just really struggled since their great season. Like they have. Of course, I'm going to mention one of them at the end, who's been incredible and has actually looked like himself again. But they have like Trey Mancini and Eric Hosmer. Of course, they also signed Dansby Swanson to a huge contract. But they have both, Mancini and Hosmer, both guys of which in their back in their day were incredible. I mean, Mancini had that unbelievable season for the Baltimore Orioles, but hasn't really been good since then. And then you look at Eric Hosmer, and he was really good with the Kansas City Royals, and really since then he hasn't really found it. Both of them have been decent this season. Neither one of them have been outstanding, but they've both been okay. Of course, Dansby Swanson's been Dansby Swanson. And then the big thing for the Chicago Cubs, they ended up winning the sweepstakes of getting Cody Bellinger. They signed Cody Bellinger to a 1-year contract this season. I really wish the Tigers would have done that. But they signed him to a 1-year contract. He went to Chicago, and he has looked like the former Cody Bellinger we all remember from his MVP days in LA. He has been outstanding, hitting like 310 with like 4 bombs, 3 or 4 steals, maybe even 5, 20 RBIs, or like 21 runs. I mean, he has been the MVP. He's back in MVP form, which is nice to see. And he still, of course, has his center field defense. So he has completely turned things around in Chicago. Now, we'll see if he continues that, but holy cow, he has looked like Cody Bellinger again. And if that's the case, then the Cubs have someone that they can. I mean, if they don't turn into like a winning team by, say, the trade deadline, they could turn Cody Bellinger into the biggest haul. That would be huge for the Chicago Cubs to make that trade, make that deal, send him away, and get massive returns for him and get a bunch of big prospects. Maybe the Dodgers trade back for him. Next, we have the Cincinnati Reds at 12-16. One of the few teams I've actually seen who's been very good at home and very bad on the road. In fact, I think that's the first team I've seen who's been like that. But the Reds are not good. They're 500 in their last 10 games, but their pitching's been okay. Their hitting's not great. This is a team that's in full rebuild mode, and no one expects the Reds to be any good. So 12-16 start is not really a surprise. Honestly, it might be a little better than people thought, but not probably much of any shock to anybody that this is what the Reds are looking like thus far to start the season. The big shock has been the St. Louis Cardinals, who were the winners of the NL Central last year, and they have been horrible. They're at 10-19 to start the year. Now their run differential is only -13, but 10-19 is really, really bad. And their hitting has really struggled. I mean, they obviously have Paul Goldschmidt. I don't know what he's been like for the Cardinals, Goldschmidt. But Nolan Arenado, he had a decent start to the season. Arenado was hitting like, 310, 320. He was looking good. And now his average has dropped to near 220. So it has really been a struggle for the Cardinals, and their pitching staff just isn't, that all that stellar. It's okay, but it's not anything overpowering. Of course, they also had to replace their catcher. They got Wilson Contreras to replace Yadier Molina, who had retired. And Contreras has actually been pretty good. But Nolan Arenado, his ERA or not ERA, his average has dropped to 2.39. Goldschmidt this year has actually been good, but their overall just team has not really produced that well. And obviously, I think their pitching staff is probably their biggest issue. I'm not a fan of the pitchers that they have. And, you can see they've given up 136 runs, which, I mean, no one's really gone above 150 unless you're the A's. Uh, Still, that number to me is wild that they've given up 231. How is that possible? But anyway, the Cardinals are much better, I'd say, than 10-19, but they're already 10 games behind first, which, yeah, that's the Pirates, but they're still a long ways behind the teams in front of them. And it's only a month in. Like this is really early still to be making bold statements about teams, but this is a bad start for the Cardinals, and it needs to turn around pretty fast here. As it's starting to, I mean, they're down 10 already, which they can certainly make up. They still got, like I said, 130 games left to go, but not a good start for them. And then we go to the NL West, which has the weird combo of the Arizona Diamondbacks tied with the Dodgers for first place. Now, Dodgers would be expected, but the Arizona Diamondbacks, this is not a team you would expect to be tied for first place. They do have a very good pitcher as their ace. He doesn't normally stay healthy, but this year he has, and he has been putting up pretty close to Cy Young numbers. He has been amazing. He had this year he's got 2.15 ERA with 0.77 WHIP. That's unbelievable. And if he stays healthy, I mean, yeah, that's gonna be. I mean, that's incredible. And he's already had 3 games this year with triple digit with double not triple, double digit strikeouts. Now, that's very hard to do. This is a very and that's Zach Gallen. Now, Gallen has not been healthy a lot, but that's an outstanding pitcher and he's had an outstanding start to the season. Now, in terms of hitting, they have some prospects that have come up. They also have some veterans. Their team is actually not terrible, but they out behind really Zach Gallen. They don't really have much more pitching, even though Gallen's putting up Cy Young numbers. They need more pitching. And if they're really, I mean, I don't think they plan on competing, but really the rest of this division has not been all that enticing. So if they really do plan on competing, getting another pitcher for themselves is going to be big. Then next, of course, tied with the Diamondbacks is the LA Dodgers, who, the Dodgers are still a decent team, but this team isn't as good as it was, back when they made the World Series, it seems, every other year. Now, they still are pretty close to making it every other year, but um, the Dodgers have lost some players. Trey Turner, of course, is gone. They've had some prospects that they've tried to bring up. They have a crud ton of prospects in their farm system. Not many of them have panned out. They have some injuries. They've tried to kind of band-aid some of their open spots. They brought in J.D. Martinez as a DH guy. He's now on the IL, and he also hasn't been that special. The Dodgers overall just are kind of middling. This is still a team I'd say that would make it to the wild card. Or I mean, with this division, how uninspiring it's been thus far, they could win the division. But I don't think this is a team that has World Series aspirations right now. They're decent, they're still good, but I don't think the Dodgers are as good as they used to be. Still, though, 16-13. I think most Dodger fans still, I think Dodger fans still would expect to make the playoffs, but expecting a World Series from this team, I think is a bit too much. And then next we have the San Diego Padres. Now this is a team that definitely expects to make the playoffs, and not even make. Sorry. This is a team that more than expects to make the playoffs. They expect to make it to the World Series. This is a team with championship aspirations, big time signings, big time trades. They've been going absolutely all in. And they are, and here's what they have to show for it so far. Uh, Fernando Tatis has come back for the Padres, which is nice to have. They also, of course, signed Xander Bogaerts in free agency. What a year he's been having. Juan Soto, of course, part of the trade with the Nationals last year, along with Josh Bell, but Bell now went to Cleveland. But this San Diego team has got great hit. They still, of course, have Manny Machado. They got Jake Cronenworth. Uh, this is a team that has outstanding hitting, and they have some solid pit. They have some good pitching. I think this is a team that definitely can win the World Series, but it hasn't translated thus far. Some guys have not been playing all that well to start the season. But San Diego, I mean, they're only a game out first place. I think they're in a good position, even though they haven't necessarily probably started the year how they wanted to. Them and the Dodgers are both on 7-3. Have both finished the month 7-3. So I mean that's pretty good. Both of them struggled. Both of them are picking up the pace. So very good to see for both of those teams. And I think both of them are very much expecting to have great success this season. And then the next team you got the San Francisco Giants at 11-16. Their 107 win season came out of absolutely nowhere, and they have been nowhere close to that since then. I really don't even know how that happened. They just out of nowhere they just decided, you know what, we're gonna have MLB leading record just for no apparent reason, and they stole the division from the Dodgers, and the Dodgers had to knock off, I think it was the Cardinals barely to get a chance against the Giants, and that was a wild series. Of course, the Dodgers ended up beating them, but the Giants have not been anywhere near that since then. And really, I don't expect them to be still anywhere near it. I don't expect them to be anywhere near it still. But the Giants, there's not really much to say about them. Uh, they have a couple players, and then that's really it. They don't really have many young guys. There's still a bunch of veterans. Uh, so we'll see what the Giants are going to do, but so far it's kind of probably what most people expected for the San Francisco Giants. I will say they probably have the coolest stadium in the MLB. There's not many stadiums that literally go right up against a bay. That's pretty awesome. If the Tigers ever play a game in San Francisco, I would love to go and watch a game there, and I don't know where I would plop myself down, what seat I would take, but that is an awesome stadium. I think that stadium is pretty darn cool, especially with the bay and right field. But the Giants overall, the team is just not intriguing. And then with the next one, you have the Colorado Rockies at 9-20. Now, this team, their runs against is always inflated because their field is the biggest gimmick in MLB baseball. It's very difficult for anybody to pitch at Colorado. This normally is a team that has a very good home record and a very miserable road record, but that has not been the case this year. As they've just been bad in general. Their big time free agent signing in Chris Bryant has actually been very good this season and has stayed healthy. So I think for the Rockies, they're hoping that continues, but the rest of their team overall is not very special. They have a big prospect who's playing on the team right now, Ezekiel Tovar. He has not been able to hit the ball, so it's not going well for the Rockies. But I think most people kind of expect it to not go well for them, as they're just not that good of a team. So that's it for for the National League, and that's it for the baseball episodes. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you for baseball next month. I'll probably try to do it like pretty close to June 1st. I try to do the reviews like every Monday, like the first Monday of the first month. But of course, this one was May 1st, so it made it pretty easy to do a uh, April review on pretty much the first day of the month. So that's what I'll try to do. I'll try to do first day of the month. I do the previous review of the previous month. So overall, that's it for this video. So until next time, adios, everyone.